First up, we got Christian McCaffrey. As you all know, this guy completely obliterated everyone in 2019. I mean, absolutely killed it in the passing game, the rushing game. I mean, he's one of the most dynamic running backs we've seen in a very long time. He's supposed to be, getting a little bit of an upgrade at quarterback and Sam Darnold compared to Teddy Bridgewater, who can actually air it out a little bit. And he's coming back healthy. I mean, last year when he played, he was putting up really good numbers, given it was only 2-3 games. But when he was in the game, he was killing it. He's still on his rookie deal, so he's still young, he's fresh, he's hungry. This is needless to say. I mean, if you have anyone other than McCaffrey as your running back one, then let's talk, because this should be a no-brainer. Next up, we got Derrick Henry. So originally I didn't really have Henry, second overall. Just given some facts, I mean, the guy just came off 2 monster seasons. Absolutely, complete bell cow, the exact definition of it. He's carried the ball so many times in the last 2 years that is a little bit off-putting. But the fact that they just traded for Julio Jones and now have Derrick Henry running the ball with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones on the outside, I mean, defenses aren't going to know what to do. Who do you stop? Do you stop Julio? Do you stop Brown? Or do you stop Derrick Henry? It's going to make everything easier on every single one of them. So, just given the fact that Henry is one of those generational type players, I have to put him at 2. I mean, the guy's shown it time and time again. And not only that, but they are getting back Taylor Lewan. Their offensive line was kind of hurt, and he just ran for 2,000 yards. A lot of people say, well, after 2,000 yards, we see a huge decline. That is true, but Derrick Henry, I mean, he's not slowing down, and the fact that they're going to be alleviating some pressure by getting arguably the best left tackle back in the game and adding Julio Jones to take some pressure off him, I love Henry as my number 2. Next up, we got Saquon Barkley. For those of you that do not know, he was out pretty much the entire season last year. I mean, his rookie year was just phenomenal. I mean, the guy absolutely flashed, complete killer. This year, he's coming back from a pretty big injury, but he's had a lot of time to heal, so he's coming back strong. And also they added a lot in the passing game. They just drafted a receiver. They just signed Kenny Galladay. They have so many playmakers on that offense that it should alleviate some of the pressure that Barkley had before when he was an absolute phenom. I know it can be off-putting to kind of draft someone that just tore their ACL or just huge injury in general, but Saquon Barkley is just absolute beast. And the fact that he has so much time to heal and recover and rest his body is just a big plus. And then you add, all these wide receivers to the mix, and teams theoretically, should, not stack the box as much as they did in years past. Next up, Dalvin Cook. I mean, Dalvin Cook, just like his name says, he cooks, man. I mean, this guy is absolutely killer. Being a Lions fan, obviously, not a fan of the Vikings, but you have to be a fan of Dalvin Cook. I mean, this guy is so multidimensional. He can get it done on the ground. He can get it done in the passing game. Every time he touches the ball, I mean, you pretty much expect big things from this guy. And he is involved in both the passing game and the run game, which gives him that added bonus, to make him into a top 5 running back. They didn't really change much on the offensive side of the ball. So they're going to have Cousins, Thielen, Jefferson. I believe they got rid of Kyle Rudolph, which, doesn't really impact Cook that much. But, this guy is a bell cow. He's going to get 250-plus touches, and he does a lot when he gets touches. And last year he was an absolute killer. I mean, if you had him on a team, you probably made a deep playoff push in the playoffs. So if you can get him in the top 5, I mean, you go ahead and get him because he's going to be the star of your team. Next up, we got Alvin Kamara. They just lost Drew Brees, who is arguably, a top 10 quarterback in the league in NFL history. I mean, we all know he's had some decline and everything, but now that there's some stability at quarterback, it should actually benefit Kamara a little bit because he's used to Hill coming in, and Winston even came in a little bit, and Drew Brees coming back from injury off and on. For him to have 1, maybe 2 quarterbacks, depending on what Sean Payton chooses to do, would be great for him. I mean, Alvin Kamara, he literally is consistently a top 5 running back in the league. I mean, he's involved so much in the passing game. It's absolutely ridiculous. And if I recall correctly, the guy had 6 touchdowns. Was it 4 or 6 touchdowns last year in one game? I mean, if you want someone that can absolutely win you a matchup in one given week, Alvin Kamara is it. And he consistently is getting you, 15 plus fantasy points, 20 plus fantasy points. you literally can't go wrong with drafting Kamara. And he's always healthy. You know, he's always fresh because they do like to share carries. But overall, I mean, he's so heavily used that he has the volume. And in fantasy football, you want people that give volume. It doesn't matter how good you are if you're not on the field. The best availability is playability. So Kamara, you know, top 5 running back, absolute phenom. Go ahead and get him. Next up is Jonathan Taylor. I don't typically like second-year running backs for a multitude of reasons, but Jonathan Taylor is special. I mean, the thing, what this guy did last year behind the Colts offensive line was just nothing short of fantastic. I mean, definitely some people are sleeping on him because of the fact that he was sharing carries and things like that. But as the season went on and he got comfortable, he did very well. And the offensive line out there in Indianapolis is, you know, top 5 offensive line in the league. They got a couple monsters up front. And Jonathan Taylor, you know, a lot of fantasy running backs that are on their rookie deal are the most efficient running backs because they're fresh. After their rookie deal, it's rare that running backs actually produce significantly in fantasy football. And if so, they're usually the, you know, once in a decade type running back. And so Jonathan Taylor, I mean, he was involved in the run game. This guy can get 100 yards on the ground easily. And then he's also involved in the passing game, you know, and so it's hard not to like him where he is. And if you can get him in the first round, obviously go ahead. Next up is Zeke. People are going to ask, you know, why do you have Zeke behind Jonathan Taylor? That's just stupid. Well, Zeke kind of dropped off a little bit, and you can attribute that to Dak Prescott being out, but in all seriousness, Zeke wasn't performing the greatest even when Dak was in. I do like Zeke in the top 10 still because he will get the carries. They still, you know, they have a good O-line. A lot of their offensive linemen were banged up last year on top of, you know, their star quarterback being out. With all of those players coming back to mix, Zeke should have it a lot easier. You know, that Dallas offense should click. I mean, they were scoring 30 points plus a freaking game, you know, the first 5 weeks when Dak was in. So Zeke's going to go back to his normal self. Obviously, he has a little bit of a decline given that he's been in the league. You know, he's taken a pounding. Just like I said, you know, usually after those first 4 years or so, you take a decline. But Zeke's workload and everything still have him, you know, in the top 10. Next up, we got Nick Chubb. I have literally never seen a running back so aggressive like Nick Chubb. The guy is a phenom. I mean, if you watch him, he is so strong. He's literally pushing Brandon Graham to the ground right here, right? Nick Chubb is not that tall. Nick Chubb is super built, though, okay? Yes, he has Kareem Hunt there, which does bring down his stock. Yes, he's not typically involved in the passing game, which brings down his stock a little bit. But this guy, if you watch him on Cleveland, he is a beast. Cleveland has a top 5 offensive line. Cleveland has a top 5 rushing game. Why? Because of players like Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and that offensive line. And then you add the fact that he just doesn't go down. I mean, the guy typically is getting at least 100 yards a freaking game. I mean, if it's not on the ground, it's also a little bit, you know, in the passing attack. The guy is a phenom. If you have him as a running back, I mean, you should not be anything short of super happy. Next up, we got Aaron Jones. I mean, for those of you that don't know, the Packers lost a couple of offensive linemen. So, you know, they just lost Corey Linsley and I believe David Bakhtiari in free agency. And so that obviously hurts Aaron Jones' stock. But you know what helps Aaron Jones' stock? The fact that they just got rid of Jamal Williams, who went to Detroit. Nothing's better than kind of losing that, you know, handcuff, right? So, you know, people might say, well, they have A.J. Dillon, and that's great. I think A.J. Dillon will be pretty good. I don't think A.J. Dillon's as good as Jamal Williams by any means, but Aaron Jones is a phenomenal running back. The more you give him the ball, the better he performs, you know, and he consistently is making big plays. You know, Aaron Rodgers loves this guy. He just is smooth. I mean, he's just very efficient in everything he does. And, you know, the Packers constantly have a very efficient offense, you know, high-scoring offense. So the volume for touchdowns is there, which is obviously great. Given we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing this year with all the drama, but Aaron Jones should be getting the touches, which is what you want in your running backs. Next up at number 10, we got J.K. Dobbins. This one was a little bit harder. There was a couple different running backs I really wanted to go with, but I ended up with Dobbins, and there's one primary reason for that. The Ravens are a run-first offense. Who's their top running back? J.K. Dobbins. Who did they invest a high draft pick in? J.K. Dobbins. This guy was killing on the ground. I mean, he absolutely murdered it because pairing him with Lamar Jackson is a phenomenal combination. I mean, you have that RPO, you have the ability to do so many things, and J.K. Dobbins was averaging 6 yards a carry. That is literally top of the league type stats. If you give him the workload that he could get, this guy could rush for 1,500 yards on top of having goal line work. Given Lamar's going to poach so many yards, but you know what? You're in a top 3 rushing offense. The volume's there. They literally produced with Mark Ingram. They were producing top 15 running backs consistently. You add the fact that Dobbins is their number 1 guy right there now. He's going into his second year. He has some time to learn. Under Mark Ingram, in that offense, he should be a phenomenal play this year. And so with that being said, this is my top 10. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I missed someone, if someone's too high, someone's too low. Let's talk.